Saturday, July 8th, 2024. We're in Lake Mohawk, New Jersey, and we are interviewing the Beierle sisters with the intention to replicate or come close to an interview that we did 25 years ago with their dad and try to capture some memories on tape. So the first question I'm going to put out to the family is, and I think an easy one, just to go down the line, but say your name and your birth date, but your full name. And also, I'm curious, is there any significance to your name, meaning like were you named after somebody or a middle name that's after somebody, or is there any how did the name come about if you know? So I'm curious about that. You go first. You're the oldest.
Thanks. Janice Marie Teresa Beierle Whittam Merwin.
There you go.
Got it all?
March 23rd.
1939.
There you go.
And
like, did the Marie come from?
I don't know where it came from.
All right, I was like it was like an aunt or something. Okay.
Wasn't my grandmother's middle name that I know of, but it could have been.
Okay. Just curious.
No, and it was Marie Teresa because I picked my confirmation name.
There you go.
Beierle was my maiden name.
Okay.
Whittam was my first marriage name, and Merwin is my second marriage name.
A lot of names.
Yeah.
Okay. Nancy.
Nancy Askin. Nancy Beierle Askin. Let's see, my birthday, March 27th, 1940. I don't really have a nickname except for Nan.
Okay.
But my father's nickname for me was Screechy Owl.
That's right.
Okay. Screechy Owl.
Screechy Owl. That's right.
And what was the rest of the question?
That's it.
Okay.
Noreen. Yeah.
Okay. Noreen, Mary, Noel, Beierle, Hone, and Noreen is just Irish. Mary is after my mom.
Okay.
Noel is after Noel McCarthy.
Noel McCarthy. Yeah.
And Beierle is the Beierle.
Yep.
And March 3rd, 1943. And
1943. Okay.
Margaret,
Yep.
Ann with an A.
Yep.
Margaret Ann Adolphine.
Oh.
Adolphine. I was confirmed with my dad, and his middle name was Adolf, so my confirmation name was Adolphine.
There's a good story.
Beierle, which is the right way to pronounce Beierle.
Yeah.
Laddie.
Okay.
And Daddy called me Precious Baby.
That's right.
I was.
Oh, and my birth date is February 15th, 1947.
Okay.
So I'm Patricia Lynn Mary Beierle Torrey, March 22nd, 1949. I was born 10 years and a day after her.
Yeah.
And the reason, do you all know the reason I have the name Patricia Lynn? You might not have ever heard this. Aunt Evelyn was my mom's sister, and I was going to be named Evelyn.
Okay.
And Evelyn rushed to the hospital wherever I was born and said, please don't name her Evelyn. I've never really cared for my name. I just heard the name Patricia Lynn. And that's where my name came from.
I never knew that.
Yeah, that's a true story.
That's so cool.
Okay.
My father's name was Scooby.
Oh, and I was Honey Bun.
That's right.
That's very fun. Yeah. And we will just call out Jack, Russell, John. No, what middle name?
John Russell.
John Russell.
They left out the Adolf for him, so he wasn't a junior.
Okay. He was not a junior, so John.
I think
Russell.
he is Russell Beierle.
Yeah,
I think
Russell
he
John.
is too.
Yeah, Russell John. Yeah.
Russell John.
but
Birth date
uses
for
the name Jack. Yeah.
Birth date, anybody?
July
9th, 1941, probably, right? Or
Yes.
39, 40,
2 years
41,
different.
42.
July 9th,
42.
42.
One of those numbers.
Okay. All right, so I want to sort of lead into the conversation by talking about your dad a little bit. So I don't want to go to like his old age. I really want to concentrate on when you were all very young, and like maybe a single memory or a couple of memories, or I want to get a flavor of specifically your dad. We're going to do your mom after that, but just kind of, and there's no order. So anybody wants to start with a story, but I'm kind of trying to think of your home. I have some questions about babies getting born into the home, but I'm going to save that for a few minutes. But your dad, like maybe think of it in a decade, like from 10 to 0. So the first, when you were first born and you were 10 years old, like that early years of being kids. What was the address of your house?
77 Stanhope Road.
77 Stanhope
I thought we were
Road.
Cherry Tree Lane.
88
88
Stanhope Road.
Stanhope Road.
88
But Cherry
Stanhope
Tree
Road.
Lane was actually the side street that we lived on.
The address was Stanhope Road.
Yeah,
Yeah.
77.
88.
88. And just for reference, the P.O. box number?
177.
177 for Grandpa. I remember that very clearly.
Yeah.
So memories as kids, as really,
when we
in
were
your young
young,
years. And I would
yeah.
say also anything about your home, like you might want to talk about a little bit, like who shared bedrooms. And
There was a lot of that.
we'll talk about Muriel later, but, I want to.
I was thinking Muriel.
But your dad specifically, so we did a lot of conversation with him, and I want to sort of draw that out a little bit about memories.
He used to built a rabbit cage in the back of our house, and we had rabbits in the cage, and he would feed them every day, but the rabbits would get loose and run across the street and go under the house of Susie Herman,
Virginia.
Remember, they would escape, and he was always trying to go chase the rabbits and get them back in the cage. And then I can remember him deer hunting and bringing the deer back, hanging them in the backyard.
Yeah.
That was gross.
Yeah.
And then he would make us deer gloves and purses. Though.
That's right.
Yes,
He
that's
did.
right.
We all had purses.
Yeah.
Everybody had them.
He would do that.
Yeah.
Yes, and then he
Well,
would cook.
have them made, obviously.
Yeah.
He didn't make
He
them,
would
but-
marinate and cook venison and
the house
We
was
would all
smelled.
leave the house.
It was awful.
Peggy and I one day went to school, Reverend George A. Brown,
Yep.
and we were both in the office crying. My mother had made us venison sandwiches on Wonder bread with ketchup. And we went to the office like,
It was awful.
she had to come back and take
Cruel
them.
punishment for these children.
She was trying to tell us it was him. I don't know what.
Oh, gosh.
But he built a basketball court in the backyard, and we played
Yeah.
21 by
He
the
built-
hour, over and over.
Yeah. He built the backboard.
The backboard.
He built the
And
whole
then
thing.
we had
yeah.
croquet set up in the backyard, and we
Oh, I
played
do
kick
remember
the
croquet.
can in the backyard all
Yeah.
the time. And then we went up to the neighbor's house and played softball, baseball, and basketball. That's where we learned,
Yeah.
because that's all we had.
On Cherry
Barley's
Tree.
Pond.
Would you go up to Cherry Tree
Bobby,
neighbors or on
Bill-
Stanhope?
Bob Helmuth's
Bob Helmuth's house.
Oh, yes.
Right up at the top of the hill from
Bob
our
and
house.
Sandra.
That was our field of dreams.
Yeah, but on
Okay.
That
Saturdays,
baseball field.
it
Yeah.
was supposed to be all the girls clean the house day.
Yes.
So 4 of us, not her,
Yeah.
would be doing the cleaning. She'd go out and play baseball with the Helmuths while we cleaned the house. I remember that.
I was smarter. I knew how to get out of that.
Now I know how we got Saturday chores. So you had Saturday
That's
chores.
right.
Yeah.
But we skated all winter. I mean,
Oh, that was
a
Yeah.
blessing.
But
having
we
that.
put our skates on inside the house
And
and walk across the street to go skating at the pond.
Wow.
And he
that
put
was
a canoe on the pond for us too,
Yeah.
Wow.
which was fun.
Yeah,
And
Mom
then
almost
somebody-
drowned on that one. She couldn't get in. She couldn't swim. And she had, the boat kept going out while she's trying to go in. We're
Oh,
trying to
God.
pull her out of the water.
And
Yeah.
you put night lights and you bring us hot chocolate.
Yeah, out on the pond.
Uh-huh.
Right. And it was called
Yeah.
Beierle's Pond, not Beiser's Pond, which is what its real name was.
Yeah.
Right.
But
People
everybody
would
in
call.
town called it Beierle's. They still do. They
They
still call
called
it
our
Beierle's
house and
Pond.
said, "Is the pond safe?"
Yeah,
We got all
yeah,
these
yeah.
calls. Yeah.
Mm.
We also
Yeah.
had a cat named Andy.
Mhm.
That cat had at
Another
least 50
cat.
cats over its
know.
lifetime.
That cat
Oh.
lived outside,
Yeah.
and they
It's
took it to a
huge.
farm one time and left it. 2 years later, that cat
It came
showed
back.
up in the window box that it used to sit on in the
Mm.
front of the living room.
He walked all the way from like
Wherever he
Sussex
was,
County
he came
somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And found our house.
Yeah, I mean that's really
What did our
bizarre.
house smell like that? Can you imagine a cat? He was so gross. I remember Andy. I remember that cat.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
like,
I
oh
do
my
too,
gosh.
Patty.
Really,
Yeah.
a lot of kittens. One, the neck got caught in the door one time, and that was the end of that kitten. Somebody opened the door and didn't close it right, and it closed on his neck. It was sad.
But I
Poor
don't know
little kitten.
about the three of you, but for Peggy and me, every single solitary morning, Daddy made us coffee milk. It was half coffee, half milk, and sugar.
He made
And
that
then
for us too.
muffins in the oven. He would broil some kind of a muffin and put
We didn't have that.
butter on
We
top
had
of it.
social teas.
Marching around in his boxer shorts.
That's right.
And then go back to his bookwork and his adding machine.
Yeah.
Right? At the end of the table, I can
Yeah.
picture where he was sitting at
Yeah.
the end of the table. You know?
Was he selling real estate then, or was he?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He
Always.
was always selling
Always.
real estate.
Mhm.
Because he
He was-
described working at Picatinny in those.
He did through the war.
through the war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he got out of it because he was driving munitions in a truck here and there. I mean, they needed him at Picatinny, and I think that's part of how he got out of going to the war.
Delivering equipment for missiles and bombs
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
the airport.
Yeah.
He also, at Skyview, he went in the barn over there and they made beer or
Liquor.
wine or liquor.
Liquor.
Yeah, during the war.
Prohibition, and he
Yeah.
delivered it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that one.
He
And
didn't
then
get
he
caught.
used to also cut ice out of Lake Saginaw and deliver that when he was a kid. Did you ever hear that? There was something when he was very young, and he said they would cut the ice out and put it in ice houses, and then deliver ice.
Wow.
He would go out when we were going to go to Swartzwood Lake for Beierle picnics, and the McCarthys all came. But he would leave the house and come back with this gigantic block of ice and start chopping it away because he didn't have ice bags then.
Right,
So
right.
he'd and get it in the
Part of
coolers.
your family, because we don't remember any of
Well,
this.
this ice
I
thing
don't
was
either.
way before we were
Oh
born.
my God!
Yeah.
This is when he was a kid.
About,
That's when he was. They were still changing your diapers.
Maybe.
Wow.
Oh my God!
So Peggy and I being younger, we had all your dads, Bill, well, I don't know if they were married yet or whatever, Don and Bill, Claude and Brian. And Daddy might have been one of the first people to have a grill outside our house. And he'd get these huge steaks.
London
from
grills.
Drew. He always had the best meat from
Oh
some
my
butcher.
God!
Yeah. And all the guys would go out and be with him. And I remember
And
just
drink
being
beer.
young and sitting at the table. And they'd all leave. And then they came back and they'd be laughing and kind of crazy funny.
Yeah.
I found out years later, while he was cooking the steak, he was giving them all shots.
I knew that.
I never knew that.
That he made.
He was like, "Whoop."
Thanks, Dad.
Funny.
Oh gosh! We used to go to Dover to Grandma Nee's house.
That's right.
Did you do that? We'd go down and learn
Yeah.
how to play poker.
Oh yes.
I learned how to sew
And canasta.
and canasta.
We're back playing
Yeah.
canasta.
And
again.
Grandpa would sit at the poker table and start singing like Fabian. He would just belt out some
he'd
songs.
like to
Do you
sing.
remember that?
Yeah.
That was
But,
fun.
Daddy and Mommy used to go to Dover all the time and take them shopping. They never drove.
Well, your dad in particular, like he had a fondness. He was an early adopter of owning cars,
Oh
even
my God,
yeah.
you know, at the age of
5 at
17.
once.
Say it.
5 at once. He
Five
was
at
just,
once.
he'd home
He-
with 2 new cars
But
and then
he
bring
would
another.
describe
One day
owning
he
a
came home-
1937. Like he
Oh,
was
he was
like
really
yeah,
on into
early
cars.
on.
Nash
But he
Ramblers.
worked very early as a kid and delivering newspapers and working at his grandfather,
he was a
his
husler.
father's.
Yeah.
Never stopped
He
working.
was a hard worker.
He was a
Yeah.
hard
but
worker.
always had time for family, though.
Yeah.
Family meant
Mhm.
so much to
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, he
I
was
can
great.
remember him when we were very young, sitting around the table, and I can remember to this day when he said to all of us, got all of our attention, and said, "If you don't have anything nice to say about someone, then don't say anything at all."
Yeah.
And I
I
love that.
always,
Yeah.
I always remembered
that's
that.
very
You know, he good character, really.
Sound words.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
very optimistic and happy
Oh, yeah.
and outgoing and friendly.
He never got
He never
rattled,
got
did he?
mad.
Never
No.
got
I
mad.
can't remember
I don't
him
never be.
I don't
never
think we were ever
was
yelled
yelling
yelling
at.
at us.
whatever that was.
Yeah.
We must have
Yeah.
been really good, though.
So that was it.
So I'm a news freak to this day, but I remember, I don't know if it was every night after dinner, we would sit and watch Walter Cronkite
Mm.
Oh,
together.
yeah.
We would
Yeah.
watch the news.
And Milton
So
Berle.
that stuck with me
Yeah.
forever.
And Milton Berle. Remember
Oh,
that
then
show?
we had
Because
the
we
little
had the
house.
earliest TV in the area.
Oh,
Yeah, and we had
The little
that,
screen.
that little tiny house to start out.
It's been-
Yeah.
It was the dining room and a bedroom, and then kids came along, and then he added on that big living room.
Then
I
we-
think
So how old were you when that would have happened?
16 and a half by 22. Probably
Children's Hospital.
early
We-
teens.
we were
Early
in high
teens.
school because we had a lot of
Yeah.
pajama parties in that room.
We all did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jackie
I
Ramsey.
remember the construction. She
Yeah.
and I, there was a priest who was involved in the construction from the Episcopalian Church. He was
Oh,
one of the
really?
workers.
No kidding.
And this priest would come and sit with Patty and I in the backyard at a picnic table
Never heard
and
that.
tell us stories and play like tic-tac-toe and stuff like that.
How
Do you remember
nice.
that?
What priest was it?
He was really famous.
Yeah.
So we had
Father
holy
Fee.
sandwiches.
Father
Father
Schaefer was
Schaefer.
right there. Yeah.
St. Mary's.
Yes, St.
Yeah,
Mary's.
St.
Oh,
Mary's.
wow,
Yeah,
interesting.
that's so cool.
And
So
remember
that-
the balcony in the living room?
Yeah.
You guys remember that?
Peggy and I used to sit up there and watch you guys making out. We'd be like,
I believe it.
there were 6, 7 couches in there. It was tiny places.
But what was it like before the room was on though? So there was bedrooms upstairs and the kitchen and the
The
dining room.
downstairs room was the living room.
Right,
Daddy and Mommy were up in the bedroom that Nancy and I eventually got.
right. And who shared rooms? Like, how did that go?
We
My
always lived
earliest
together.
memory was, well, Patty and I always shared a bed. The three of us were in the largest bedroom,
Yeah.
Right.
or second largest bedroom
And
for
Jack was
years.
downstairs.
Well, then where were
Is that
Nancy
right?
and I
Yeah,
then?
all the girls
Jack was
were always
downstairs.
up.
Yep.
But Jack's
As you
bedroom
left,
was
we took that one
downstairs.
over.
Where were Nancy and I when you three were in the big room?
Mommy and
There are
Daddy,
2 other
They moved their
bedrooms.
bedroom down.
Well, the other bedroom
Stairs.
was small, so there was only one bed in that.
There were
I
2
think
beds
you
in
two
one.
must have been in that bedroom. Because the three of us were in the bedroom that faced the pond.
Yeah.
Mommy and
Yes.
Daddy were in the
The
bedroom
big
that
one.
became yours. So
I
the
don't
only
know
other
how we
option
had
was that
2
little
of us.
bedroom. Maybe there were bunk beds in there.
Yeah. And it had a little
Yeah.
I
cabinet
don't-
you could open and crawl into. You used to go and hide in there sometimes. Probably
Well,
in
there
trouble.
was a small closet in that room, but I don't remember
Yeah, small
Being
closet and a
two.
half bath.
upstairs. Yeah.
There were
Yeah.
8 of us, and there was one.
Can you
and a
imagine
half
today?
bath. And the
A
full
half
bath
bath.
was right off the dining room.
So everybody went downstairs
Oh.
to take a bath or a
and
shower.
take a
Yes.
shower. Yeah, bath.
Yeah.
We didn't have a
Yeah.
shower.
No
And then we had this humongous living room.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It was
And
the
the
first
tree.
great room in Sparta.
Yeah. And the Christmas tree was gigantic
Yeah,
up to the
that's
ceiling.
right.
That was
Even when you
great.
were little, right? Like, or teens or whenever,
Mhm.
that was always a feature.
Bill and Don used to help decorate the tree, and they would sing the song. And we put up a tree that had
Papa
no
put
balls.
the paper on the wall.
That's right.
I don't know all the words still.
But
And
we
that was
put
our
up a
Christmas
tree
card.
that had no balls at all, and that's
No balls at
that,
all.
was,
Yeah.
that was the name of the song because they kept breaking the
Oh.
balls as they drank away.
But that was our Christmas card every year.
Yeah,
All of us by the
in front of the
street.
fireplace.
Mhm.
Daddy was so proud of that fireplace. He had
Yeah.
no-
Then the
So he
fire
built that, right?
almost.
That was built for that.
Remember
in
that?
that room.
That was
yeah.
scary.
Were you there?
Fire, yeah. No, but I heard about it.
Okay, so when we were undecorating one Christmas, I was probably maybe 15 years old, I would say. We always decorated the mantle of the fireplace with greens, and by the time we took them down, they were dry and dead. And we had a fire going, and a spark came out, and that whole wall went on fire. I ran, got wet towels, and I was banging it out with the wet towels. The fire department arrived. This fireman comes charging in with these hoses, and my mother's there. Stop! Don't come in. She's putting it out. She was it was beautiful wood floor, parquet floor.
Mm.
maybe?
Pegged oak.
Pegged oak. Pegged oak.
Yeah.
And she didn't want those floors ruined.
Oh, that was the Saturday job with the floor polisher. We had
Yeah,
to do
that's
all
right.
the time.
Yeah.
Keep them up. Yeah. Jeez.
I remember when our father used to go to Ogdensburg and pick up our grandmother, his mother,
Yeah.
and bring her down to our house quite often.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she'd make us rice pudding.
She would
Yeah.
bring or make rice pudding and bring 5-gallon barrels of ice
Yeah,
cream
2
to
and a
put
half.
in our. He bought a deep what's it called?
Freezer.
a deep freezer. We had 2
freezer.
of them, one next to the other, and
Yeah.
he would have these big
Big
Yeah.
barrels of ice.
gallons,
We always had ice
2.5
cream.
gallons.
A lot
You
of
would
ice
have
cream.
loved it
Butter
there.
pecan.
I had
You remember that?
It was butter
You both
pecan.
remember that? Yeah.
One of them.
Yeah.
One of them.
When she'd arrive with ice cream and
Yeah.
Yeah,
come
we
in
had
and
a
make
giant
rice
freezer
pudding.
in
Yeah.
the basement.
Yeah, there were 2 lift tops. Yeah.
We always had ice cream and I think Coca-Cola.
That's where I got hooked.
That's where we have all these fillings. Yeah. We used to take us for our braces up to Haggerty or something
Sussex.
in Sussex. Yeah.
Yeah.
I never wore mine. I
So-
bent it apart.
His mom, Mary Tice, I was still young in kindergarten when she was alive, and I used to go with Daddy in his car selling real estate with her. She would join him,
No kidding.
and she would tell me all about Holland and her life and all that. Because
Really?
remember when I told you guys one day that she was from Holland because you all thought she was from Germany?
Yeah.
So, yes, I spent a lot of time with her.
Wow, that's
No.
She was
cool.
adorable.
Great.
She was a sweet little old lady
was.
with blue hair and a hairnet.
Hairnet. Remember
Oh,
that?
and
She
then
always
she
wore a
became
hairnet.
blind after a while. I remember Dad bringing her in out of the car, helping her. She
Or
lost
was
her
blind.
eyesight.
Really? I don't
Yeah,
remember
with the
Remember
end.
that either now.
Sweet
I must
little
have been in
lady.
Ohio at that point.
She made
So
rabbits too.
let's go back a little bit. So I want to stay in younger years, but I want to hear now a little bit about your mom, about Mary and early remembrances of her and her. We don't know a lot about her, so
Yeah. She
just
died so young.
yes,
She was
died at
49.
49.
49.
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
died
Was
in
young.
'68.
We were all young.
Oh, at age 49,
so
1968. Right.
49. She was, let's see, how old we
She was
all
49.
been when she died then.
I had Butch and Mike, and I was pregnant with Kelly.
Yeah.
1968.
I was
No,
21.
no. That
I
was
just
21.
turned
And how old were you when she died?
Kelly used to
19.
come in and sit on the
19,
edge of the
wow.
chair with her, so it had to be Kelly. So I must have been pregnant with Kim.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
22 and pregnant with Michelle when she
Yeah.
died.
So she knew some of the grandchildren.
Yeah.
She lived to see some of the grandchildren.
Yeah, you.
But they were
Yes.
young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
6 or
And
7.
Michael
I
Yeah.
remember I have a picture of her holding Billy when he was
Yeah.
very young.
Yeah.
And her life probably could be been saved
Today.
Today,
with
yeah,
all
yeah.
I went to a
the
psychic
progress.
once, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden she said, "You have a daughter," and she said, "Your mom died, and she did not get to meet your daughter." And she said she wants your daughter to bring one red rose to her gravesite. It all came out, and we did it. And I didn't know in Hanover where the
Gate of Heaven
Gate of Heaven.
Cemetery.
Yeah.
in Hanover,
So we're
East
riding
Hanover.
around. I didn't know where the site was, and Michelle's all of a sudden go, "Mom, turn right, turn left, stop the car." And she got out, put the
There it
rose
was.
There it
on the
was.
And
grave.
her middle name was Rose.
Mary
Mary
Rose.
Yeah, the
Rose.
one
Yeah.
rose meant everything.
Oh,
always.
wow.
And then roses kept popping up. Once Noreen told me that story, roses kept popping into my life. So the day that we had all flown to Florida, my dad had a blood clot to his brain, and he was on support, and it was decided that he should be taken off life support, and he passed away. And we knew this was going to happen, and none of us could be in the room with him. We just were so sad. But our stepsister's husband, our stepsister Paula, her husband Rick, was in the room with Daddy when he passed away. And I'm like, what do you do? We're waiting for this to happen. So I went down to the hospital cafeteria and decided to have a cup of tea. And I reached into a basket and I pulled out a tea bag, and it had a red rose on it. And I'm looking, everything else was like Lipton. There was one bag,
Wow.
and it had I still had that tea
Amazing.
bag.
Oh, you
Amazing.
say,
I
oh,
do,
good,
yeah.
Peggy, nice.
Yeah.
that's
And
really
that evening, Nancy and I were at the hotel sitting around a hot tub, and a Cessna flew over very quietly. Daddy had two
Yeah,
Cessnas
yeah.
and just quietly flew over. And we just looked up and
There
said
he is.
goodbye.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
really,
Remember
really
that.
interesting, the
That's
things that
amazing.
happened.
Yeah.
Yes, the
Yeah.
signs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Come in my house, you'll see roses all over the place. There's so many connections.
Yeah, it's still there.
always crying.
And Jim's always crying.
I'm a crier.
When Mom passed
brings
away,
back.
oh, she's talking. When Mom passed away, I remember being in the dining room and Dad was sitting there all so sad. And we had to go up to him and ask him for the funeral, what kind of flowers do you want to get? And he looked up and he went, one red rose. I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
That's all he wanted was one red rose.
Yeah.
So you guys might not know this story. Maybe you do. He went every year as a realtor to Atlantic City, the huge real estate convention. And so the real estate convention was coming up just a few months after Mommy passed away. And he said,
Quite
I can't
about a
go without
year.
Mary. And I said, Daddy, you got to do something. I said, just go. You'll run into people that you know. And he said, okay, I'm going to go.
So
So
wait a minute. On top of that, Herb Kloss.
that's what I'm going to tell him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you knew that.
Okay, you go. Yeah. So he got there and he came home the next day so happy. And Herb Kloss he didn't tell me anything else, but Herb Kloss and Marion were there and he was so happy and had such a good time. And it was just nice to see him happy, and that I was so glad that I made him go. The next day on his desk in his office, there was a note and it said, Russell, I had so much fun with you last night. I can't wait to see you again. Please come to my house for drinks whenever. So nice to be with you, Jimmy. night when Daddy got home, he would open up a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc, the one with the black hat on it. He gets home, he pours my glass, I have my glass, and I pick it up and I go, "So, Dad, who's Jimmy?" And then he told me the rest of the story. It was Herb Kloss's daughter, and she was divorced from Sparta with 5 children. But Daddy worked with Herb Kloss forever, and they're really close friends. So they were 17 years apart. But then a year later, they got married at Herb Kloss's house.
And Herb Kloss planned this. He said to Dad, "You've got to come to the
That's
convention."
right, Peggy.
And he intentionally brought Jimmy.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
And they danced the night away.
They
Yeah.
danced the whole night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
It was a couple
Daddy
days. They were
walked her
there.
to her room at
Yeah.
2 a.m. and went to his room and wrote out this beautiful story of the evening and how he fell in love that night. And we have the letter.
Wow.
It's a beautiful letter.
Oh.
Yes.
And he wrote
Wow.
cards to us for years, always with
Birthday
Poems.
cards
Oh,
with a
poems.
poem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wish
I've
we
saved
had all
of
those.
them. I have
Do
all
you?
of them.
Oh, that's so cool.
Prior to his getting married, if Jack were here, he would tell the story. But he went in the office one night at the quadrangle. And he's walking around, and all of a sudden he heard some noise upstairs.
because
which
there
is
was a car in the
Can I
parking
talk?
lot.
He went upstairs and he opened the pull down thing to go up. And Daddy and Jimmy were messing around upstairs. Found them there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Up in the attic.
Wow. Oh, that's so
God.
funny. I wanna move back a little
We've
bit
only
still
done 2 questions.
to stay a little bit more with Mary and younger years, like going to school. So where'd you go to school, and who get you up in the morning, and how did Grandpa was making? He made the coffee milk,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but how did you get? Was there a bus, and where'd you? So Mohawk out, or which schools were you going
It
to?
was Sparta Elementary School. At
The
the
Mohawk
time.
Avenue
It's
Was the
now
elementary
Mohawk.
school?
Yeah.
Helen Morgan? Did you go to Helen
No,
Morgan?
we
it
went
came
to
after.
K through 8.
Did you go to Helen Morgan?
No.
No.
We went to K
You
through
guys-
The three of
Brown.
us went to Reverend Brown.
The three of you
Helen
went to
Morgan.
Reverend Brown
Oh,
when it
that's
first
right.
opened.
Yeah.
Are we gonna?
Ours was K through kindergarten through 8th grade. And when we were there, they put an addition on the school, and we then had a gym in the school when we were in 7th and 8th grade, I guess that was. Remember the big gym that we had finally? But before they had that addition on there.
Mm-hmm.
And
So would
now
you
it's
take a
just
bus,
one
or would
grade.
you?
We took a bus.
You took
Yeah.
a bus down.
Picked us
I
up right in
remember
front
the
of the
driver.
pond.
Right.
He was really cute, actually. He was just the nicest guy.
Yeah.
I should remember his name. But
I
we had
don't
the same
remember.
driver for a long time.
That's
Yeah.
so funny.
Yeah.
And so
But
Jack
then we
went to
went-
that school too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then you started at Reverend Brown.
Reverend Brown.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we went to Newton High School, and we were bused. Daddy had to drive us to the plaza every morning to pick up the bus at 7:30 or whatever it was.
Whatever, yeah. In
Yeah.
the plaza, yeah.
And then we'd get home and we'd get dropped off in the plaza, and we'd immediately go into either Hershey's and get a half a pint of ice cream cut in half. They were squares, and they'd cut them in half, and that was your Dixie cup type thing.
Yeah.
Or we would go to the Jug and get English muffins, well done with butter, and they were so good.
So you always had a little money in your pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking
Yes.
about that.
Yeah, but
You
it came
always
out of
can't do
Dad's
that.
pocket when he had the jacket on the chair.
He always kept change in his pocket
Yeah.
for us. Do you remember that?
Mm.
And in the morning, we would all reach for some change for after school or snacks or money. I remember that.
Oh,
Those
sure.
big suit pockets that he had.
Mhm. Yeah, that was cute.
Well, so let me ask you, and I guess we'll go back to school in a minute, but do you remember when Patty, like who do you remember being born? Do you remember Peggy being born and Patty being born and being little? And I don't know about Jack or Noreen. I don't know. How do you?
If you don't remember, they're not going to remember.
Yeah, really.
I
I
have no
remember you were
memory
8
of
years old.
being a baby at all.
I would have
I
been
just
8.
remember you guys when you were older and driving us places and taking us for
Yeah.
ice cream, and you had
Dairy
a
Queen.
convertible MG, and Nancy would
Nancy
take
took
us
us
for
to
ice
Dairy
cream.
Queen all the time.
Yeah. I remember with the curling iron that Mom would put it on the stove to
And
warm it
curl
up.
our hair.
And
burn
I had
your hair.
long blonde hair.
Yeah.
So she would do all these things like they do
That's
today.
long curls.
Yeah, and she would get me all dressed up and take me out in the yard to take a picture. She would turn me around, take the back of my head, so she could see the curls.
She didn't try to curl my hair.
Well, she curled our hair.
We used to get
perms.
Peggy and I would hide.
Give us these
She called Tony
Tony
perms.
perms.
Yeah, I remember her
yes.
chasing
All
me.
of it. It's
Yeah,
awful.
that was
And then
awful.
we'd be
Terrible.
all done. We'd have like
These
massive
stupid curls over it.
So when you were little, you would,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
And
she
then-
she did like to cook too. She used to make big dinners when Father Kelleher would come.
Oh, Father
They'd go out and
Kelleher.
get shrimp, and Daddy do all the steaks. And
And
they-
Mommy would make spaghetti sauce, stuffed
Oh, yeah.
cabbage rolls,
Yes.
two of her favorite things.
I
beef
still have the
stew.
recipes, and I still make them.
Remember the
Yeah.
cabbage pot sitting on the stove?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd sit
That
there
was a
staring at it. It
big
would be.
pot.
I always thought it was going to
Oh, hello.
explode.
Pressure cooker.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
She
what I'm
had
thinking of.
dinner
Scary.
out, soup to nuts and homemade apple pies, and every Sunday at 2:00 you were at
We
that
had
table.
what was it
dinner.
like after school, like on a weeknight, like on a school day? Would you?
We
We'd
go
go out
home
and
and
play.
We'd
Go home
go
and
right
play
up to
after
Helma
school.
season place, whatever
And
season
then
it was.
Mary would make, Mom would make dinner.
Yeah,
She
we
was
were
the dinner
allowed
maker?
to go
And she
out.
would just call out the door.
Time to
Yeah.
come in.
And she had a list
Not like
in
it
the
is today.
kitchen for the week about turns for washing and drying the dishes.
Oh,
Taking-
yeah.
Jim
We
and
all
Rain
took
Jack,
turns,
and it
remember?
was on.
One
And then
more
I
time
did that
I
with
would
my
put
kids
away,
too.
We would
The same
sing.
thing. You had
You
to
would
start
while
on
you're
the-
doing
you know
dishes.
that.
Well, say that again. You,
We always said one wash, one dry, one put away. But when Noreen was with us, we would always sing.
Okay.
When we were doing the dishes, made it go faster.
and did Jack have to do the dishes? Would he?
Never.
Never.
He did the garbage, maybe.
Maybe.
I don't remember.
Oh.
Okay.
Mom took us. I guess this is it. Took us to in Reverend Brown. They had a parents' night, and everyone came in, and we sang. We have a song.
He had
Are you
one
ready?
song.
It is better to
Well,
lie.
okay, wait a
just
minute.
ready.
Do you remember this?
It is better to
Okay,
lie.
we'll try.
That's it. A little bit.
It is better to light just one little candle when you stumble in the dark. Better far that you light just one little candle. All you need is a tiny spark. If we all say a prayer, then the world will be free.
A
The wonderful dawn of a new day we see.
So
And
if
if everyone lit just one little candle, what a bright world this would be.
The Benedictine sisters would be very happy that
Sister
still.
Yes.
Angelina
Sister
called us her
Angelina.
three cherubs.
Now we know where all the
So what
music comes
grades
from
would
in
you
the
have been? You
family.
would have been like
All
fifth.
these
What was the
kids.
difference in grades?
seventh grade,
Because
sixth
we-
grade,
Yeah, I don't know.
fifth,
We-
I
sixth,
we
and
remember
would sing
being
it
up
like
in the stage at
Kiwanis.
Pope John High School singing with you guys, except I got so scared I moved my mouth, but I wasn't singing. I was wrecked.
I think we would sing it like Kiwanis Club, like that kind of thing as
Yeah.
well.
Mhm. Yeah,
I remember that.
I can't remember. I can't believe we remember
And
the words.
did your mom drive?
Yes.
She did.
Daddy bought her a car.
Okay. So I remember him talking about that.
A
Like,
white Plymouth convertible
Yeah.
with red leather
Yeah,
interior.
that's
Okay.
And then one day he came home with three. What were those three?
Nash
cars?
Ramblers.
Nash Ramblers. And I took one to Montclair College when I was going to school.
Wow.
He was a good guy.
And they were
He
purple.
He loved to bring home new cars, didn't
Yeah.
he?
Yeah. Every 2 years he'd get new cars.
When I got my license, he came home in a navy blue Volkswagen and said, "Here you go." And it was
Nice.
stick shift.
And when I was 17, I got the New Yorker blue convertible.
Yes.
And I was the captain of the cheerleaders, and I put the whole team in the car with the top down.
What kind of a car?
They're sitting all around the top of it, hanging out.
We were always the one that
Remember
did all
that
the
car?
driving. When we were in Newton High School, and I'd be the one that would drive around all over Sparta and Newton to pick kids up to take them to whatever game we were going to
It
or
was us,
whatever.
yeah.
But Daddy was very generous that way.
Well,
I always wondered who paid for the gas for all that because we never paid. Did he
and
give
you
us
needed
money
cash
for the
back then.
gas?
He probably
I
made
guess.
sure the
Boy.
tank was full.
I never
Yeah.
ran out
He
of
must
gas.
have.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But it was
I was
interesting
thinking of
because
that
he was,
recently.
you know, he was a Depression era man or
Yeah,
kid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
he was.
he had, you know, memories of it, and he lived it. certain.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think it was you that said, he was always happy and cheery. Like,
There wasn't
however
anybody
that
in town
happened
that
for
didn't like
him.
Daddy.
Right.
Yeah.
Everybody respected him,
Yeah,
and
like
still
that
talk
didn't get him
about.
down, and he got work, and he
No.
figured us out.
Yeah.
He bought, at a young age, had some
Yeah.
money in his pocket, and bought cars.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a weekly budget that he had written out on a legal pad,
Yeah.
and it had Mary bobby pins, 5 cents. I mean, it was
I
down
saw that
to
too. Yeah.
the minutest details.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting. Huh?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
good.
He had that, and that was during the Depression time, and he was writing out all
Yeah,
that.
and this all happened during the Depression, the development of this lake, which is amazing that it took 3
Yes.
years for the lake to fill in. But then that people during the Depression
Yeah.
came
would
here to
still
buy
come.
summer homes. It's just
And
a
it closed
miracle that
down.
it happened.
Yeah. And he was
Yeah.
the one that was the paymaster for all these people that were working on the lake.
Right.
And he, the little building at the beginning of the plaza with his plaque on it.
Yeah.
He used to go out to that building to pay the people
Yeah.
so that they wouldn't come in the office with their dirty shoes
Right.
and muddy boots from building the lake.
Right.
Yeah, he really developed most all of these homes in the beginning.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So,
Do we know how they met, Mary and Russ? Does anybody?
At the crane
I know
company.
it's
Crane
at the
company.
crane company. That's right.
Daddy
Yeah.
used to. How did she get from Dover to Sparta? Somebody
she
used to
drove.
drive her.
Well, there was
No,
I
she didn't
remember
drive
this.
then. She didn't have her license.
No, there
then.
was 5 people that came from Dover down to the office.
That's what it
2 or
was.
3 women and 1 or 2 men.
Yeah.
And they carpooled together down.
How did
down
you
from
find
Dover,
that out?
From the video. From the video.
Oh, and his video.
Oh, his
yeah.
video. That's
Oh,
right.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Wow.
So that,
But
yeah,
they
that's how
met
they
at the crane company.
So say a little bit more about Mary's mom and dad. Like, what do you remember about them as?
Grandma and Grandpa Nee.
Maggie,
Maggie.
Yeah.
Maggie and John.
They used to call me Mini Maggie or something like that.
Oh, really?
She was a
Maggie.
hard worker.
Yeah.
Grandma Nee. She was
She
always
used to
working
make,
in the
like,
kitchen. And
She'd have 8 or 10 pies on the table. She used to take in boarders from Picatinny, and that's how they got some extra money.
yeah.
Yeah, and
Their
they
house
played
was
cars
in Dover.
In Dover, yeah.
That wasn't Baker Street, though, was it?
Yes,
That
Yeah.
was
151 Baker Street.
Yeah.
that
That's
was
it.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
That was Grandma and Grandpa's house.
yeah.
Right.
And they had a big backyard, and they used to do some farming out there. But Grandpa had chickens, and he had the whole chicken farm down to the
So
left
you
side.
guys go down there as kids and,
Yeah,
and
and
visit them.
We went
Yeah.
there
And we
a
never
lot.
got the eggs
A
out of
lot.
the.
We
We
lot.
never did much with
Every
the
morning
chickens.
at 5:30, I'd hear. Stop it! Yeah, Rooster was at Rooster.
Oh yeah, roosters. He used to do
Rooster bacon and eggs. For
Oh, yeah.
Bacon and eggs.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So funny.
A lot of
Remember when
oil.
she used
He
to
would spill
squeeze
oil.
the lard?
the butter.
remember
we
to
used
make
to butter
that?
with the little
remember
dot
that?
inside of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd
It came in a
squeeze that.
bag.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it was
mix it.
what was
Butter,
it like?
margarine.
It was margarine, I
Margarine.
think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Squeeze that bag until the bubble burst and everything turned.
Yeah.
We would sit in the
I used to
living room,
squeeze these
squirt.
bags for
Yeah.
her and help her in the kitchen. She was
Yeah.
always working. Always had an apron on.
Oh,
Do you remember
yes.
that? And a dress.
A house
so
dress.
A
And
house
she had
dress.
a washing machine. And after the stuff came out of the washing machine, you put each item into this roller thing
To
to,
dry
wring,
it.
Yeah.
to wring it out.
Wring
and
it
then
out.
they got hung on a line in the backyard.
And they had
Yeah.
a big square screen that you had to pin all the curtains to let them dry. In one of those big old frames.
Oh, I don't
That used
remember
to be in the
that.
basement.
Me and Peggy, I'm going to do the laundry and then play canasta with you after.
Yeah.
So we'd sit on the floor
Watch
watching her
that
winning
thing.
laundry.
Are you done yet?
It was like canasta and like a dessert or something. Okay.
She did laundry for all those boarders too.
Yeah.
Sent them off with their lunch every day in their
Oh,
lunch
yeah.
pails. Remember
Twilly.
lunch-
Remember
Twilly.
Twilly?
Lunch
Oh,
pails.
Twilly, she's saying.
Yeah.
Oh,
Twilly
she
was
takes us
one
to
of her
Alamuti.
boarders.
Yeah. Do you remember the
Alan
one border?
Mucci, that's where his wife came from, the girl he eventually married, because he always used to say, I'm going to Alamucci, and we're going, there's no such place.
And who was Twilly?
One of the boarders.
Who
Oh,
really
was there for years.
Yeah.
But did they have?
Mary
he
and
was
Twilly.
like a
Did
son
Mary
to her.
have brothers and sisters?
Evelyn.
She had
Evelyn.
Evelyn.
And Tommy.
Tommy.
Her
Tommy.
brother.
Tommy.
Tommy.
Evelyn
Tommy.
died young too, at age
39.
39.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Tommy was he was hurt in the war. No, where was
I don't
he?
think he was in the military.
He was hurt
I think
someplace
he
along
was
the way. He was
little-
kind of a slow learner.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So the grandparents outlived Evelyn and
Yes.
Oh,
Took
yes.
all their children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Tommy. Tommy died afterwards.
Yeah,
Yes.
Bill he was in a home, I guess, for a while.
Oh, so they
Or did
outlived
Bill take
even
care
your
of
mom
him the whole time?
I don't remember.
Jack might remember
Both of their
that.
daughters died
before
they
they
did.
did. Wow.
Mm.
So Evelyn was 39, our mom was 49,
Yes.
and grandma and grandpa lived to be like
70s,
80 something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
late
No.
70s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So would we have been born? Probably. Yes, we were. Grandma.
Yeah, because I
yes.
used to
So
take you up to the nursing home where Billy Askin's office is now.
Okay.
Is the nursing home that they
She
were in
was
at the
in a
time.
room that's right above where Billy's office is now.
So
Right
funny.
upstairs from
Crazy.
where he is.
Yeah.
Wow.
What
That's
goes
something.
around?
Yeah.
Small world again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aunt Beth and Uncle Ed, remember them? They would come over and
They were
play
my
cards with us.
godparents, I think. And
Yours?
Beth and Ed.
Oh, really?
Right. Yeah, and they lived just around the corner from Grandma.
Yeah.
They were
And
related.
that was Grandpa's brother.
Grandpa Russ's brother.
No,
But no
Grandpa
knees.
Nee's brother.
Oh, Grandpa
Ed
Nee's
Nee.
brother. Oh,
Ed Nee, yeah.
okay.
Mrs. Mitry's, the ice cream store, Mrs. Mitry's.
Oh, we used to walk to Mitry's
down
all
there.
the time.
Grandma would give us money to go
Yeah.
buy ice
And
cream.
it was 2 blocks away from the house, and we'd walk down there to get the ice cream.
Do you remember when we used to go to Buffalo? Did you all go to
Yes.
Kelleher's house, the
we
working
had
boys' home.
Monsignor Kelleher? Was that Grandma's brother?
Cousin.
Cousin.
Yeah, yeah.
This guy, Monsignor Kelleher, nobody knows where he got all of his money from.
Right.
But he had a
Parish.
working,
Rich and good looking.
It was
Yeah.
crazy.
And a Monsignor.
He had a working boys' home.
Well,
in
he was a
Niagara-
boxer,
Niagara
and he
Falls.
was
He
the
started the-
wrestler. He's a masked marvel.
But nobody knew
Knew
that
it. No,
at the
and
time.
that's where he was
What
getting his
about the
money.
Golden Gloves? Didn't he started something? The Golden
He had a
Gloves?
boxing
That was
thing.
it.
He was the masked marvel.
Yeah.
But nobody knew who he was because he used to wrestle all the time with a hood on
Yeah.
and went way into his wrestling career. He was very successful.
And so he would
Some
win
guy
money.
pulled his hat that
Yeah.
lost and pulled out, and they were like, "Oh my God, it's Monsignor Kelleher!" And then that Marvel comic book came out after that about his
That's
life
so
of what he did.
Yeah.
Wow.
But we used to go over the Peace Bridge and go to his
Yeah.
home.
He
had
had a
this
home in Canada.
magnificent home, and there was some woman there. We're not so sure who she was because I was there. Secretary. Yeah, the secretary and a cook. And I always remember, because we were so young, that you guys or somebody, they'd pick up his silverware. It was 14 karat gold
Yeah.
silverware,
High-end stuff.
goldware.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God. And everything he did was quite
High end.
Elegant.
high-end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe the money was
But he
from
would have a
that.
table all set up, and then he would have the working boys that lived in the home come out and serve us all. And all the food would be delivered to our table. And I'm
Yeah.
talking about piles of food.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
It was
true.
I
just
remember
amazing.
going to mass there at this working boys' home,
Yeah.
and he would say the mass, and if any of those working boys got out of order, he would scream at them
Yeah.
during the mass. He had quite a temper, and he was tough on those boys.
yeah.
I'll tell you.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think he
he's
finally
really-
got in trouble over that.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah,
He-
yeah.
He came down hard on those
Yeah.
boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
It
But he would
wasn't
take them
like
downstairs and
a
box
nice
with
summer
them if
camp
they
or
were.
anything. You know?
Was it a big, like a lot of boys?
It was a big home, but I don't know how
I
many
don't
it
know how many
housed.
boys.
Yeah.
Well, neither.
Not a big
So it was
number,
right
but
near the Peace
maybe-
Bridge, right?
Yeah.
Based across the street.
And
from the
he
Peace Bridge.
was the cousin of
Grandma
Grandma
Nee.
Nee.
Grandma
Mother,
Nee.
yeah.
Grandma Nee's
And
mother.
he flew to our home on Stanhope Road, and they had he renewed their vows.
Well,
when
he
they
married
were, I
us,
don't know
or
what
he was at our
anniversary,
at
like
our
50th
wedding.
anniversary or something, and he came and stayed at our house and renewed their vows.
And
Yeah.
Oh, we
blessed
knew
every
grandma,
room in the house.
Grandma Nee's vows, grandpa and grandpa
No,
Nee's.
our mom and dad's.
Mom, oh.
Yeah.
For like 25, what was it? It would have been
I don't know.
25
I don't
years
know.
or something. Yeah. That's really cool.
It's all good.
So anyhow,
Where did the tradition, I'm wondering, for holidays, Grandma Mary did it up, right? She would,
For
we always had Christmas at our
Oh,
house.
my
Well,
Lord,
before
yes.
that, we used to have it at Grandma Nee's house.
so
On our
that's
big dinners
really,
when
that's
we
where
were
the
really
lineage
little.
came from. So she
Yeah.
would, when you were little, go down to Grandma Mary's.
Grandma Nee's.
I'm sorry, Grandma Nee's.
And
yeah.
then once we had the house, it all started coming to our home.
When the room was
Added, yeah.
Okay. And then she would set the table like, would
Yeah.
there be a table set for everybody? Like a
Yeah.
big,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
a big sit down. And I'm remembering
down,
a little
yeah.
kitchen. The kitchen was probably the size of your kitchen, right?
Oh,
It
yeah.
wasn't
It was
Yeah.
a little.
Wasn't
Small.
Oh, it's
anything
tiny.
bigger than
Oh,
that,
my Lord.
Yeah.
And Janice, you and Mommy, going from the dining room to the living room, there were shelves. You used to decorate them big time with Christmas or
Oh,
with
yeah.
Christmas
Camel
stuff.
Village.
Well,
Maybe
we
it
had
even had
the
a theme
Christmas
to it.
houses, the cardboard Christmas
Oh,
houses
yeah.
I
that they had.
remember that.
And we do
Mm.
Christmas scenes on that whole thing.
You
I used to love to
did.
do that.
That's
And
Oh,
so you
yes,
all
yes.
kind of adopted some of that from grandma in terms of from your
Yeah.
mom
Yeah.
in terms of
Yeah.
making Christmas, Thanksgiving too. I
We
presume
had
was
the
like
big
a
tree, and
yeah.
we had a lot.
And Thanksgiving was a big holiday too. With
Yeah,
that
and
was
that was
also
always at our house. And then once Mommy passed, I ended up coming to our house.
right. Okay.
Yeah. And then we'd have 40 for sit-down dinner. We'd have to take
Yeah.
the furniture out of the living
Right.
room and put
The
it out.
She
kids-
was the oldest, so she had to do it.
Right.
A lot of things, right?
I liked it.
Well, so do you guys? Some of them will take it a step further. Do you remember when Mom first left? And I don't know. Did you?
I do. I remember when Janice left to go to college, and she
'Cause you
only
would have
went as
been-
far as Montclair, for
Right.
God's sakes. And I was like beside myself
Because you would have been
when she left.
10 or 11, 12, something like that.
When you were 18, I would have been
10.
10.
Yeah.
You're 8 years younger.
And you would have been 8.
You were little.
So you
And she used to come home on weekends, and then on
'Cause she had that car.
Sundays she'd go back, and I would be like in depression. when
I
she-
never
on
knew
Sundays.
that.
I hated Sundays.
Yeah.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah. I didn't give a shit when you guys left.
I got over it. She was like a mom figure to
She
you.
was. Janice
Yeah.
was definitely
Probably.
a mom figure to me.
Yeah.
And I think I was a mom figure to her.
Probably, yeah.
She needed a mom. Oh gosh. I remember that little blue car that you had, Patty. Went, oh, this goes to when you went with airlines around that time. You had
Yes.
that little blue bug.
I had that little blue, and I used to take
Opal.
you guys to Opal
Opal.
GT. I
Yes.
said,
You used to get to the Dairy
I
Queen on
lived in
Route 23.
Boston. I guess I drove that home, and I used to take them to the Dairy Queen all the time.
Right.
I think I need
Yeah.
to wash it first.
Probably.
And then we go to the Dairy Queen.
Of course, when
Mike
he
and I were
was
talking about that.
14, he was driving cars around when we go to Cape. Where was that vacation we all went
Long
to?
Island.
Long Island.
Long Island.
Yeah.
I remember. Oh, I'm so
He was like 14, probably.
Something like that.
And he washed everybody's car so that he
Yes.
get to drive
long as
it
I
to
got to
where it
drive
was
it around the
Yeah,
circle.
washed.
you were there to take care of my Michael.
Yes.
He was
Yeah.
the only little one that came
Mm.
along.
I have another mom story because in town we had the grocery store. What was the name of it? A&P, and across the street was Pull's Corner,
Yes.
Yeah.
right where that old gas station is
Yeah.
closed. So Mom used to drink Schlitz beer, and I remember she would pull up, and I was in the car once, and it comes in a carton. They fill the carton.
Cardboard carton.
Yeah, and they opened the window. What do you want? She said, "I'll have a carton of Schlitz beer." Mom, get it straight.
There's an H in there.
Whatever it was. I
Patty,
remember.
how old were you when Mom had passed away? You were
19.
19. So it was, Patty was trying to decide what she was going to do at this time.
I was going to go off to Boston for college, and you all said, I was the only one left home. You were all married.
Yeah.
Were you
Yes.
accepted at Boston College?
I'm sorry, Boston University.
But had you applied there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was going to I love Boston. When I was younger, Pat Scully and I used to visit her sister Sheila.
Yeah.
She went to school. So in my head, I was always going to Boston.
Wow.
But then I
Well,
went to the Berkeley School for Women because no one wanted me leaving Daddy alone.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was
You did that
fine.
for
And
a
I
year,
did that
yeah.
for, I think I was there for maybe 2 years. Is
Year
it
two. Could be
Was a
2
And
two-year
years.
then Nancy
program.
applied me to the airlines and became a flight attendant. She was responsible for me going into the airlines, which was a twist of fate that was wonderful.
Oh, you had a
Yeah.
great time
I
traveling,
did.
didn't you?
That was as good
So
as
you
it
were
gets.
there.
Plus, I was based in Boston.
Yeah.
That was
got to
good.
Boston.
Yes, that was good.
And Brian and I moved back home.
Yes.
We had just recently been married, and then
Right.
Mommy died not long after. So now it's Daddy and Patty home alone.
Mhm.
And Brian was in law school. So that summer, we came and moved in and helped, with the cooking and cleaning and laundry and all that. And I commuted to Morristown to work, and Brian was clerking in a law firm. He commuted. So we were all there together again for a little
Yeah,
while.
I
was
remember
nice.
that, Peggy, when you came back to
Yeah.
stay
And then
there
he
with
met-
them.
Yeah, because you all were always moving us, and we had bookshelves that were made out of planks of wood and bricks. You moved those sand shelves. We moved a lot.
Oh, God.
She still has those shells.
So do you remember like when they graduated high school, like mom's graduation from high school? Was that a big event? No.
I don't remember.
Newton High School was
Newton
you
High School.
and
Yeah.
you from Newton High
And
School.
Jack.
And Jack.
Yeah.
Jack graduated.
Yeah.
So,
Noreen, Peg, and Pat went to Pope John.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Noreen, you might have been the first class of Pope John.
I was.
That's what I was
Yeah,
thinking.
that's
Graduating
right.
class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was
Then
brand new, the
I
building
was the guest
and everything.
speaker at the 50th reunion.
Yeah.
Father McHugh.
Yeah.
So I thought he was looking
He
for
likes
money.
our family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't talk yet about your dad's parents, which I'm curious about, Grandpa and Grandma. So Mary Tice and Mary Tice Beierle. And what was Adolf? What was Grandpa Russ's dad's name?
Henry.
Henry
Yeah.
Beierle.
Daddy's father had an ice cream store and a bakery, wasn't it? And Daddy,
Ogdensburg.
they all lived upstairs
Above the bakery.
Yeah.
Right.
with Henry and Ernie and Pauline,
Pauline.
Ken,
And
Ray,
Ken,
Ray.
and Ray.
There was
Raymond.
like 7
Well,
of them.
Yes.
Little
Ken and
place.
Glenna had the flower shop. Ray and Rayla, is that her name?
really?
Yeah, Ray and
Rilla.
Rayla.
They had the insurance company,
Mm.
and Henry and Marion had the ice cream store after Grandpa died.
In
Okay.
Hamburg. though.
And
They
then
had-
in Hamburg, we had George and Lois, and they also had an ice cream store and candy store in Hamburg.
Right.
Mhm.
And they lived
also in
there.
Ogdensburg, Ken and Glenna had a flower shop.
The floor shop, yeah.
So there was like the Ogdensburg Mafia.
Yeah, they owned the place.
Yeah.
Pretty
They
much.
really
Interesting.
dominated.
Ice cream
Beierle was a
flowers
big
only.
name in that
Yeah.
town. Yeah.
And so first talk about Grandpa and Grandma. What are your memories? You would visit them. You would go to Ogdensburg as well. Like you would go
Yeah.
to Dover. Like you would go out to see them periodically. Or?
Yeah, but not as much as we saw Grandma Nee.
No.
Because
I don't even remember Grandpa.
Grandpa.
Beierle.
he died when we were
Young.
very young.
Yeah.
Like I was about 4 years old.
Yeah.
And the only time I ever saw him was, this is bizarre, and you can cut this out, but it was a picture of him in his casket.
Same here.
And that was the only
Mm.
time
Yeah,
I
it's
ever
The only
saw
picture
him.
I
Yeah.
Ah.
he had
we
died
ever
before we
saw.
were born.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you remember Grandma?
Oh, very
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very well.
Okay,
She's
so
the
she
one
was
that
a widow
brought
for a
the ice
long
cream.
time.
Yeah, and the
okay.
rice pudding. But
She
she
was a widow.
babysat for us on occasion.
She would
when
come
we
out
were
to
little.
Sparta.
Yeah, they would bring
Okay.
her in.
Okay.
She didn't drive either.
No.
No,
No.
Daddy used to pick her up every
Yeah.
chance he could and bring her down to our house to,
Okay.
for a visit.
Okay.
Mhm.
And that's,
Yeah.
he was so good to her. He
Yeah.
was really good to her. Yeah.
Yeah.
She was sweet. She
Yeah.
was a
Yeah.
sweet little
Yeah.
lady.
Yeah.
Little
Tiny
short.
little lady.
Yeah.
You know?
So it was a lot of aunts and uncles then
Yes.
from Grandpa's.
But we didn't
Side.
see a lot of that side of the family. We had family reunion once or twice where we were
Yeah.
all together. And I remember going to Hamburg and staying with George and Lois because they had a daughter, Jane, and we were kind of similar in age. And I guess they were trying to get us family
Right.
together. But I just stayed there for a night or two, and that's all I remember.
Yeah,
being
we
around
didn't spend a lot of time, but when we
family.
were together, we had the best time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We really did. We had several family reunions,
Yeah.
and
That's
it
right.
was great
And
fun.
where would they be had? In Ogdensburg?
No, we went to a field someplace, like an outdoor,
and there was
place.
a memorial service not too long ago, maybe
Yeah.
3 years ago, and that was in outside of Newton
Yeah.
in Hampton, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
it was.
And we saw all these relatives from the
Oh,
Beierle
that's
side.
Cousins. It'd be your cousins, right?
Cousins, yes.
And their cousins' children.
Yes,
Yeah.
some of them, yeah. And it was like we see each other all the time.
Yeah.
It's
Isn't that
just
funny?
really,
That's
I'd love
definitely
to
our
see more of them
experience,
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a cousin named Rayla, and she lives in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And I actually want to invite her out here this summer.
Oh,
We
Yeah, that
really
would be
enjoyed
nice.
being with her.
Yeah,
I
that would
messaged
be
with her
fun.
recently.
Did you?
And we talked about that.
Yeah.
Peggy,
Yeah.
So you should make it.
And then we have our step family too. And of all of them, we see Paula the most. They
okay.
live in
Yeah.
North Carolina.
They're, yes,
Yeah, I think so now.
in
Yeah.
South Carolina.
And I remember Uncle Ernie and Aunt Pauline.
Yeah, Pauline was Nancy's neighbor for a while, and she was a real pistol.
She
Yeah.
was like her.
She
She
was
was a lot like
just-
her mother.
Big
Yeah, she
smoker, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pauline. I
Yeah.
remember her.
And she
No?
used to-
I'm having a
I don't
memory of her
remember
being a
that.
smoker. I don't know.
You don't
maybe I'm wrong.
remember
Beer
that?
drinker, though.
Yeah,
Beer
that's what I was
drinker.
gonna say,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
She smoked some. I guess I don't remember her smoking a
Okay.
lot.
All right.
And Uncle Joe,
Yeah.
her husband, Joe Skoke.
Joe
Yes.
Skoke was her
Pauline and
husband,
Joe.
right?
Yeah, they were neighbors for a
Yeah.
little while. She was
Then they lived
Yeah,
up on then they lived up on Alpine Trail after that.
And Uncle Ernie was single, or did he?
Yeah,
he was married.
Okay.
He had a daughter named Gretchen,
Okay.
Brill,
and
and Rory.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And his wife was at this reunion, and
Yeah.
we saw her 3 years ago.
Okay.
Glenn,
Oh, wow.
Glenn Wynn.
Glenwyn.
And so Uncle Ernie was in the Battle of the Bulge, and when he came back, he was never quite the same.
Yeah, that's what.
Interesting.
I mean, I don't know.
PTSD.
Yeah, I had a lot of PTSD.
Serious
yeah.
PTSD. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Interesting.
Daddy, I was going to say, Daddy took really good care of him.
He
He did.
went to visit him.
Yes.
He was in
All
the-
the time. He would send him money when he was in like a home of some sort.
yeah,
A veterans home.
Veterans
You know,
home.
because he-
So I'm going to switch topics a little bit again to say, since Jack is not here, talk a little bit about young memories of the only brother. Like, what was it like having one brother in the house with all these girls? Like, you
we
know,
would be all in the house doing our thing, and we never interacted a whole lot.
No.
He never got upset with us.
Yeah.
You know?
He
He
just
would get his fishing pole and go and fish across the street.
Oh.
yeah, he would do his own thing basically.
Yeah.
We are back to segment 2, part 2, and we're introducing Jack Beierle into the fray. One of the questions that we asked early on, so I'm going to have we stated it for you, but everybody was giving their full name and their date of birth, and if your name comes from anyone in the family or what the relation was, or how did you get to be called Jack? Just if you would start in for the record.
My formal name is Russell A. Beierle Jr. That's on my birth certificate. And then when I was baptized, they named me John. And the reason for that is, and I was nicknamed Jack, but my dad's middle name was Adolf. And this is 1941. It wasn't a popular name.
Yeah.
So they renamed me. That's how it originated.
Very
I didn't
interesting.
know that.
Okay. And you were born October? What's your birth date?
July 9th,
1941.
1941.
Okay. Okay. All right. I think what I'm going to pivot to is sort of the, like, starting in the teen years, and you can all speak to this a little bit, jobs that everybody had around town, and sort of first, newspaper routes or any kind of, I think everybody had different kinds of jobs around town, and sort of this, as well as you were growing up babysitting or so talk about that a little bit, and no order. Everybody had a job, I know that.
Well, yeah, we all went
Probably
Danforth.
my
Four
first
of
job
us
was
worked at
babys.
Danforth's
4.
restaurant.
Yeah,
You didn't know.
No.
yeah.
They had the
Janice
best
and
hamburgers
Don.
ever.
It was the best job ever.
Yeah.
I loved that job.
Cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
Remember the
We
cheeseburgers?
cooked,
Yes.
we cleaned, we fixed, we waited.
and
We
a little cup of sugar.
Kinda did everything
served with
there.
the
And
ham.
how
Yeah,
old would
right,
you be
that's
when
great.
you'd take like 13, 14,
that,
15?
no,
something?
that was high school. Was
High school.
17, 18.
17,
Yeah.
18.
That's
okay.
where I met your father.
Okay. Working
actually-
at the restaurant.
Actually, my father sold their family their first house, but Don and I worked together at Danforth. He was the manager.
Okay.
What was the name? She made all the homemade soups all the time.
Well, we had Pearl there, and she
Pearl.
made wonderful homemade soups and all kinds of homemade pies. And we made the hamburgers in the back room. We ground the meat and put the patties on a piece of white paper and smacked them down with a pan and put them on layers and put them in the walk-in freezer.
That is so funny.
It was fresh hamburger.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
really
The
good.
cheese was
And a
was great.
hamburger, no, a cheeseburger, potato chips,
sherbet.
pickle, and souffle of orange sherbet was 35 cents.
What?
35 cents.
With a drink?
No, a drink was extra.
I was 10 cents.
$1.40 for 4 cheeseburgers.
Wow.
I
Or
remember
hamburgers.
when
How old
pizzas
we
at
are.
the Central were 60 cents and $1, small
my
and,
God.
And large
and
pie.
large. When we
Yeah.
were kids, we go down there 60 cents and $1.
That's
That was
incredible.
So who didn't work there? You did not.
Patty
I
didn't.
did not.
I
But
did.
it was gone
I
by the
did.
time she got there. They had a new owner who just kind of ran the business down.
Okay.
Danforth sold the whole business.
I was
eventually.
there with the new owner.
and he was.
There were
a-
actually 2 different owners
Yeah.
after Danforth, and they just didn't manage it
He
as
came
well.
in- he came into work with 2 different shoes on.
Yeah,
He
he
was
was-
just
yeah.
a real geek. Is the
Was it
word.
over by the Gibson Girl? Is that
Yes.
Yeah.
over in there? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the building is still there.
Yeah.
There's a dry cleaners
Yeah.
and the
Reclaim?
vision store and
Reclaim.
consignment store.
Yeah.
The building is the same on the outside.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. How about babysitting. Anybody do any babysitting? In
Next
there?
door,
Eplers.
next door trail, the Eplers. We babysat for the boys.
Quarter.
A quarter an hour.
No, a quarter for the night.
No way.
You're
No.
kidding.
You couldn't even
I
afford a
didn't make lot of
cheeseburger. My first babysitting job was babysitting you and your brother.
There you go.
And I babysat for you, your brother and
yeah.
sister
Yeah.
on Woodport
On
Road.
Woodport Road.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think we got paid though.
Probably
We did it because we love them.
Yeah, we did. We talked about the
Oh, okay.
earlier years. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of things I could throw in there.
Throw
Please.
it. Go ahead.
Yeah, you have some catching up to do. So
Well,
you know.
Yeah.
I just asked her if you covered the earlier years. You're
Yeah.
into the teens,
Yep.
okay? So there might be some things that might I could bring up that.
I can imagine.
I remember at 5 years old, and we had an Uncle Bill, another Uncle Bill, lived behind my grandparents in Dover, and he gave me a quarter one day, and he said, "Go get a haircut." I was 5 years old. So I went down to Dover. Walking the streets, I ended up over by a Dover hospital, and the police picked me up.
Oh my gosh.
My parents were panicking back at home, and I got scolded for something my uncle gave me a quarter for.
And we were scared. We were crying at the door, and my mommy was just like, they didn't know what to do. Nobody knew what to do. We
Your
couldn't
father-
find them.
But they were a quarter at the time.
You couldn't.
So I
You
had
couldn't
the
call a
quarter.
cell phone.
You couldn't call
Yeah,
a cell phone.
Ironically, I ended up over in the hospital I was born in. You know,
You were really
Dover
lost if you
Hospital.
ended up.
You were born in Dover Hospital.
That was a long walk where he got to.
That's a
So was
Where
he a couple
Grandma's
miles
house was.
away from you?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
my goodness.
I never
Quite
did
a few
find a
miles.
barber shop, though.
I was going to ask, did
We'll
you get
give
your
you a quarter
haircut?
before you leave today.
At least he didn't ask for the quarter back.
Wow, I never heard that story.
Tell some other early stories.
Well, speaking of Nancy, the person that's speaking, I have probably most of you heard this story already. Well, I was getting my license for the first time. Okay. She was 18. I was 17. And we're on Stanhope Road with my dad. He's in the passenger seat. I'm driving. And Nancy's in the back seat. And I'm like driving for the first time. And she looks over my shoulder and says, "You drive like a
Oh my God.
That's my sister. You know, she was a tomboy too. She used to play baseball with us up at Bobby Halsey's house, and we had more fun as kids. She was the only girl though that played with the guys.
Excuse me. That's where I learned to play both baseball,
But she
basketball,
was there
and
all
football.
the time. You were there. Baseball.
Oh no, I
football,
played all the
we-
time.
yeah,
We were up there all the time.
yeah, that was great, wasn't it? I mean,
It was the
Sandlot
best.
baseball.
You and I were very competitive
Oh,
with
yeah.
each other, weren't we? Do you remember?
Yeah, remember
Oh,
we
my
used to
gosh.
walk with our skates across the road.
Yes.
We talked about
And I
that. Yeah.
never really figured it out why I couldn't skate very well, but my skates were dull.
I remember when I fell and you came sliding by me and the blade hit. I still have a scar.
Is that right?
Right there.
Oh, no.
Almost took my eye out.
Oh, my
I totally
gosh.
remember you having so much trouble skating. I can picture you.
Yeah, I have
You
weak
had
ankles.
skates on, and
Yeah,
you skated like that. Your ankles
I
were.
was playing a
skated-
hockey match with
Did.
Brian down at remember that?
Yes, Coulter's Lake, maybe.
No,
You skated like
6. That too,
oh gosh, we had
What
fun.
was it like for him to live with all the girls?
Yeah.
yeah.
How did you?
Oh,
deal
Well, I
with
remember
it?
when they built the addition, which was great. I mean, you wouldn't build that addition with the patio we had out there. It was all masonry, right? It'd be a deck today.
Yeah.
But that was huge. Remember, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we had water guns and we come around. I remember that as a kid running around with our water guns spraying each other.
Yeah.
But it gave us a lot more room. But I still had a closet as a bedroom.
Oh.
So instead of building a couple of bigger bedrooms, like this huge room.
And another bathroom.
16-foot or
that's
18-foot
crazy.
Christmas tree in it. And
Right.
a Muriel hanging from the rafters up there.
So I haven't touched on Muriel yet, but I'm curious.
Lord.
Like, how did she get
Muriel.
introduced into the family, and when? And
She
We were
was our
young.
cleaning lady that
She
Mom
was hired to clean,
yeah,
and as the years went by, she was at our house more and more and more. I think I her husband was an alcoholic.
Oh, George, he was the one up on the rafters. I
Oh,
forgot.
yeah, that was
George. Yeah.
And so she moved in with us. Mommy said, "Come and live with us." And
We
so
had all
then
this
we really,
room.
I mean, she was like our full-time cook.
Mhm.
She made most of the meals, and she
Did the
ironed
laundry.
all of
Yeah.
our clothes.
Everything. My mother every single week sent our sheets to Tom. Our sheets went to the cleaners every week. We're talking 8 people there. It was Tom. He would pick our sheets up, and Muriel would iron all my clothes. My mother did not want one wrinkle on anything.
And she did not want to do the ironing.
Yes,
So Muriel, you can do that.
Well,
Yeah.
before
Oh, gosh.
Muriel, we would take baskets of clothes over to near Sparta High School to the Fellner house. And that lady would iron all our clothes, and then we'd bring them back.
Was
if
there
you
a
needed
washing
a green
machine,
shirt
or-
and it was in the basket, you were done for a week.
We had a
Because-
washer and dryer.
But
we
she's
did.
still.
Yeah,
She's.
but she took all the clothes there to be ironed.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you guys were maybe out of the house. It was just me and Peg home and Muriel.
Yeah.
And she used to wear crinolines, like a dress in crinolines.
I remember that.
So our parents would leave, and Peggy and I would say, "Do you want a beer?" And we'd give her a couple of beers, and she would be on the chair like this. And we would have a party all around her. We'd be like, I think it was 2 beers in that.
Well, probably had those videos today.
And she'd never wake up. We were like,
Oh, gosh.
have parties and
And
whatnot.
speaking of that patio, he's talking about outside our humongous living room.
Right.
You walked out and there was a platform, and then stairs
Yeah.
went at
Left and
least
right.
one way, left and right.
To the front, right?
So
Yeah.
toward the pond, right?
Yeah.
Toward the
So
pond.
Patty and I were having a party, and all of a sudden it was like, "Mommy and Daddy are coming home." And so we yelled to all these kids at my house. They ran out that living room door and right off that first thing down onto the patio, and then out and down again. Luckily, nobody got hurt because they just tore out
That
of
was
the
not the
house.
only party at the house.
No,
Peggy.
no.
You've heard about some of the parties in the
No,
previous-
actually, this is a good time to
Parties
talk
at
about
the
that a
top
little
of
bit.
the
So,
parties. I'm talking about well, maybe that's in later years, so maybe you're into the next
No,
phase.
this-
no, this is
There's
a
150
Can I ask
people there when
Peggy
Dave DeLay directed traffic.
This was
And
my
the-
graduation party.
Yeah, and we
That's
had
right.
beer lined up in
We
the
had a-
brook and a cop directing traffic.
And a keg
Only
in the
about
backyard.
150
Oh, I
people
read
there.
that, yeah.
And
That's when we were
everybody
18
was-
and you could drink.
was there a drinking age, like the
I
regulation?
think we were
Was
18
your
and
graduation
legal.
party?
Yeah,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
but they let us have that party, and we had all kinds of people there. Oh my
Didn't you
God.
have to be 21 then at that?
Maybe, I don't know.
It
Well, we were
was.
probably illegal.
Okay.
So Brian and I were at a formal dance at the country club, and I got mad at him for some reason, said, "That's it, I'm walking home." And I did. I walked home in my heels and my gown. And
Uphill.
I went upstairs to my little bedroom and fell asleep. So Brian decided, well, I guess I better go make up with her. So he drives to the house. He comes in the living room, and there's someone asleep on the couch, and he goes over and kisses that person, and it's his mother-in-law. And she goes, "Peggy's upstairs."
He said, "I love you, Peggy." And she said, and Ellie says, "Well, I love you too, Brian."
Get away from me.
Oh, gosh.
So talk a little bit about those high school years then. Like when did boyfriends or girlfriends first start coming to house? Or maybe it wasn't boyfriends in the beginning. Like you were talking about your neighborhood friends, or like you had Newton High School friends, or had
Newton High School friends. I had a whole slew, and we had a combined pajama party one night with my crowd and her crowd, and that was the first time I ever smoked a cigarette.
And
I
the only
smoked Habitat,
only.
and I've never had another one. I didn't like the taste, and that did me in.
I liked
Thank
it.
God.
I smoked for a lot of years.
But we used to have a lot of parties there.
so
and it was a
girls in the
great
beginning,
dancing-
but then
yeah.
their boys would come pretty.
Yeah, not too many boy parties, did we?
No, I don't think so. We had
Just
pajama,
more pajama
parties.
parties,
mostly,
yeah.
I think you guys had a Halloween party one time, and you went down to the lower level. So now there's a garage under this huge living room
Yeah.
with a fireplace in the garage.
In the garage.
And you guys decorated that whole space and had a Halloween party.
Yeah. We used to decorate that back
The back room also.
too. We decorated
Yeah.
that all for parties too.
Mhm.
So would you two have parties too? Like, would
We
you?
had, well, not with Jack,
Not
but
with
I
Jack.
had the girls' pajama parties, and
Yeah.
we're all in our baby doll pajamas. Remember
It
those?
seemed like all ages came,
Yeah.
Yeah.
when we had a party. It
Yeah.
wasn't that I'd have one party
Everybody's
for
friends,
just my
right?
friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Don and Bill came into the picture around the same time, or
Well, when we were in high
High
school,
school.
I
This guy is-
started going
yeah.
out with Daddy when I was like a senior in high school, I guess. Yeah. Because we were working at the restaurant
Yep.
at the time. And then when all through Montclair, we were together and we got
Okay.
married 2 days after I graduated college.
okay?
Yes, that
When
happened.
did you and Bill meet one another?
I remember when I first saw Bill, when he came to move to Sparta, when he was going into his sophomore year, and I remember him getting on the bus, and one bus took all the West Shore students, and another bus took the East Shore students to Newton High School. And when he got on the bus, all the girls are like, "Look at him! Look at him! He was so cute," and he still is. And he had on, I can remember the jacket he had on. It was a red suede jacket, and he got on. He was very shy, and he took a seat right up in the front and just very quietly went off to the high school. Beyond that, he dated one of my best friends, and that friend eventually went into the convent.
One of the McCarthy girls.
Bill would come home from F&M on weekends, and we would drive together down to visit Midge
In Elizabeth.
in Elizabeth, St.
Yeah.
Elizabeth's, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when we started getting together. So we're probably junior year or senior year, Bill.
nice.
Probably senior year, because you were still dating now, junior year. So
Yeah.
it was fun. That was
Yeah.
a
Didn't
nice story, yeah.
Mom and Dad drive out, and you didn't expect them one weekend, and they came into the
Yeah.
room, and you were like, "When we're
We were there with you.
And Kathy
and
and
Mom and
Pat.
Daddy came
Yeah.
in and we were staying for a weekend dance that was at his school. I
At
think.
school, yeah.
They wanted to make sure everything was okay.
So we're all cooped up in a motel together.
Yeah.
But we were all together in the same room. So
Yeah.
it was like,
Big deal.
So, and how
But
about?
also with Midge and Noelle and Mary Beth, Midge went into the convent. Before that, Noelle went into the convent. She was my best friend. And that was another party we had at our house, the going away party for her to go to the convent. And we had a huge crowd there. And their sister, Mary Beth, had already been in the convent. So 3 of them
Mary
were there.
Beth McCarthy.
and Butch,
Yeah.
when Bill and I used to drive to the convent to see Midge.
Midge and Noelle.
We
yeah.
would take beer and extra beer and cigarettes for her, and she'd get in the car with us in her habit, and off we go, so she could have a Peel's beer and a cigarette. Isn't that funny?
And then I found out later that she became friends with the janitor, and he used to supply her cigarettes in the convent.
Oh, jeez. There's probably no smoking in the convent. I'm guessing. I have
Yeah,
no idea.
right.
She
They
found a
didn't have
pal.
money for
She found a
cigarettes.
pal.
Right.
And one of them married a priest, right?
Yeah,
They all
Gary
came
was
out
a
of the
brother.
They all came
They all
out
left.
eventually.
Yeah.
And one of them married a priest who had left the priesthood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their parents were the best friends of my parents.
So
Dr.
I'm curious
McCarthy.
about that, like the McCarthys, and were there other families?
Barrys.
The Barrys.
Jim
Judge
Barry.
Barry.
Judge Barry
Yeah.
and May.
Jim Berry.
And
So Fanny McCarthy and Dr. McCarthy. What was his name?
Neil.
Neil McCarthy. Right.
they were all, that was their group. Yeah.
I remember with Chubby McCarthy.
Yeah.
Lived on
Their
East Shore
son.
Trail. And I was down there one time with Mom, and Joey comes out, and Mom introduces me, and I thought she said Tubby, so I've been called him Tubby.
He
we
was
used
good.
to take the train together down to Newark. It'd be Mike Tilton and Bobby Meister
Oh,
and
yeah.
Tubby.
He was good friends with Don.
the
Yeah.
couple that
Oh, it's
sang
good.
down at the West Orange Inn or whatever you call it?
Green Orange.
They harmonized with each other, and they were friends of Mom and Dad and McCarthy's too. And I forget
They
their name.
sang in the little
Oh, yeah.
restaurant.
Oh, Rose and Dan
Dan
McCarthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they sang at both of our weddings.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they were all good friends.
They were
Related or-
great.
related?
No,
different
they
McCarthy.
just were entertainers, nationally known entertainers that
Oh.
ended up retiring and coming up here and singing at the Elks Club or whatever it's called
I
now.
think the Elks Club is
Yeah.
where they sang. Yeah.
But they were so good. Oh
They
my
were
God.
good.
Yeah.
Great fun music.
Yeah.
And every time Mommy'd walk in, they would sing, "Oh, it's Mary, Mary."
Yeah.
They'd do her song.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite memory of your mom, like, or something that stands out about your mom?
She was just the best. I mean,
Yeah.
she had 6 kids. How she did it all, I don't know. But
Yeah.
she was just a wonderful, beautiful woman.
Yeah.
Next.
So how about meeting
Susie.
Oh, Susie?
Susie?
That was a little interesting. I used to crash the Culver's Lake Resort. So I went up there one time, and they have a bar downstairs. It's actually a cave, but upstairs they have the dance hall and such. So I was up there with Freddie Burroughs and Jerry Smith, 2 good friends of mine. And anyway, the girls were sitting on a bench there, and I went over to ask this girl there. She said no. So, she wasn't feeling well. But she was very pretty, and I persisted. I went back a second time, and I said, "Why don't you do something with your hair?"
It's a good start.
I never heard the end of that.
I can't imagine why not.
Lucky you ever saw her again.
You got her attention.
Yeah. We started dancing. The next thing you know, I'm out with her the next day and the next day, and then I visited a couple times in Long Island, and then I didn't see her for a year. What happened? I went in the service, and then when I got back, I moved into New York. Freddie and I had an apartment down by the village, and I was looking at the phone book. I remembered her last name, Lemude. So if her name was Johnson, I wouldn't be
What's
here
a
right
phone
now,
book?
because I looked at the New York phone book, which is about that. So I looked up a Lemude, and I called the right one the first time. She was working in New York. I was living in New York, and that's
Oh gosh.
Wow.
So she finally went out and danced with you.
No, we did dance that night, but she was sick that night, and she
Yeah.
So
Oh,
anyway.
God.
So you graduated Newton High School, and then went to Seton Hall?
Yeah.
No. Yes?
Mhm.
Seton Hall University. Yeah. And do you guys remember him leaving? Like going off to college, like one by one?
Not really.
Not
I
really.
stayed there the first year. Vinnie Connors and I had a room off campus for a while. We were in the dorm for a while. Then the second semester, we had a place off campus right across the street from the school.
Okay.
And then I started commuting, so I commuted for a long time.
Okay.
I was working and commuting. You know,
Yeah.
so Route 80 wasn't there, but one time Route 80 had not opened yet, but I used it as a shortcut.
He was out there anyway.
So I was
Remember
riding
that
down
you
Route
did
80 one time, and the police chief comes by and stops me. They said, "We're opening the 80 next day. Why are you here today?" I'm just picking up my brother. He let me go. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
So then, and you were up to Pope John during those days.
Yes.
Yeah. And
then when I was graduating, I couldn't decide what I was doing yet, but I thought I'm going to go in the convent. And so I went through the motion and got things ready. I had my long underwear and my black shoes. And a friend called Gail Mahler called one day. She said, not knowing exactly what's going down. And she said, would you go out with a friend of mine tonight? And we'll just go out somewhere. And I said, I can't because I'm going in the convent, So I said, I don't know what to do. And I said, what's his name? And she said, his name is Claude. I said, I am not going out with any Claude. And then I said, what's his middle name? And she said, Pierre. I said, no, I'm really not going out with him. So she persuaded me, and we went out. And on blind date, this little boy an orphan from France, that's how he came here
yeah.
to the United States. And we went out, and I thought, this is fun. And then we went out a couple more times, and then there we went.
She bagged her black shoes and her long underwear. And her long underwear.
He loaded people onto the ferry in Lake Mohawk that goes over to an island. So he was raccooning island people over. And he did something one day, and he flipped the whole ferry over.
With a car on it.
With a car. I don't know how.
Wow.
Yeah, that was bad.
Oh.
His parents had a home on Raccoon Island.
Yeah.
So he was from Opakon, or they were living. He was an
He was
orphan, but
adopted
that
and-
family
Into
was
that
from.
family. They had a summer home there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did we all get married at the Catholic Church in Prona Farms? I did. Did
You were at Prona Farms.
Oh, I thought maybe we were all the same.
Oh,
We
we
were at the
both
Rock Oak Lodge.
Rock Oak
both
Lodge.
of you.
Nancy
For the
and I.
reception.
Yeah.
I think
And
we were
Our
all
Lady Lake
married at
Church.
The
Lady
Jungpa
Lake,
band.
right?
Remember that?
Yeah.
The German band.
Yeah.
But so all the receptions were at Rock Oak.
Just our two.
For
Oh,
those
you're
there
two.
Yeah.
You're two. Okay.
I
Where
got
was
married in New York.
in New York?
Yeah.
We
Long
were-
Island.
And where were
We
you?
were
You
there.
were at Perona's
At Our Lady Lake.
and
Yeah.
Perona Farms reception
At home.
home.
Yeah.
And
At
Peggy,
home?
I
Is that
can't
what you said?
remember.
I'm sorry, I was daydreaming.
You were Perona Farms.
Corona Farms.
Yeah, I have pictures of that. Okay.
And the convent thing, when I was deciding to go in,
Yeah.
I was smoking some Marlboro. So
Yeah.
I thought, I'm
You
just going to
needed
go
to
in
get
and
to know
call
that
my
janitor.
I'm going to be Sister Holy Smoky when I go in. And everyone calls me Sister Holy Smoky everywhere from in Raleigh. They heard the story.
Right. Well, that's so funny. But so you were friends with Midge and Noel and
Yes.
Yeah.
also, and so they were like, how did that happen? Like, I'm out of curiosity. You all went to Our Lady of the Lake, I
'Cause
guess, right? You were.
Daddy
They
sold
went
a
to-
house to the McCarthys,
And they
and
went
he
to
got
Newton
to
High
know
School.
them.
Yeah.
And they went to high school, but he hit it
Newton.
off with the parents, and they became good friends, and their children all went to the high school, so we all became family friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Noelle
From
is a
that
year
time.
ahead of me.
Right.
And Midge was in her class.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But they were at Newton High School.
And we used to drive around Sparta in a car, all of us singing all the time. I don't want to join the convent.
Yes,
I don't want to be a nun.
nun.
I'm just a member of the Ku Klux Klan, all out for days, beer and for fun. If a cigarette you find me,
And a bottle
and
in
a
my
bottle
hand.
in my hand.
So
Dancing
Nareema's
all
going to the
those
convent.
Church bells ringing.
Sitting all night in the
chapel
convent singing.
I don't want to be a nun.
nun.
And the three of them were nuns.
Peggy and I were all set to take over your wardrobe. See ya.
She's leaving tomorrow.
She always had good clothes.
She had
Like,
great clothes.
Still does.
what do you mean?
Oh,
You lost that one.
So Peggy's turn.
Yeah.
So I met Brian when I was a junior in high school in the summertime on a hayride sponsored by the 2030 Club of Lake Mohawk. That's where I met him.
Wow.
And then we were dating. And as a side, he had a sister, Vicky Laddie. And I went to kindergarten with my future sister-in-law and my future stepsister. We were in the same kindergarten class together.
Wow.
Paula
Was in the same.
Paula
Wow.
Kloss was in my
I didn't know
kindergarten
that she
class.
was
I have a picture of us.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty
Yeah.
cool. So anyway, Brian was only here in the summers. He went away to the Lawrenceville school when he was in 7th grade. So we started dating, and before you knew it, I was 20 years old. We had gone to the restaurant in Andover that you guys go to for wings, the Andover Inn, I think it was called.
It was cold.
And it was a beautiful formal restaurant. We had Chateaubriand for 2. And then out he came with a paper towel, which I still have. Dearest Peggy, please do not create a disturbance, but would you engage me in an engagement?
So Brian.
Wow.
And gave me this, I don't have it anymore. He gave me this beautiful pearl and onyx ring that was from the family from the 1600s or something, which I lost.
Oh my God.
And so anyway, so I'm engaged, and we came home and we went to the Valley View. We got my parents up, got his parents up. We all went to the Valley View, and I had my first mixed drink, which was a Manhattan, and I've never had a mixed drink since then. I only drink wine. I've never had another
drinks straight now.
alcoholic beverage. But so I'm 20 years old, and we were set to get married in August 1967. And I said to my mom, I'm not even 21 yet. Do you think this is okay? And she said, sure, it's fine. Number 5 out of the house. So we got married at Our Lady of the Lake Church and had a reception at Perona Farms.
Wow.
Did you fall in the pool there, or somebody did?
When when I was a teenager, I was with Patty. We went out to dinner to Corona Farms with the McCarthys, Dr. and Mrs. McCarthy, and their daughter Terry. And it was the fall, and we were bored. So we said, "Can we take a walk?" So we're walking. It's night. It's dark on the grounds, and all of a sudden, I'm completely underwater. There was an outdoor pool covered with leaves. I didn't know it, and I went right in.
Oh, wow.
But the worst part about it was the next day I lost one of my shoes and the water came off. The next day my father went over there with a fishing pole and got my shoes out. I'm like, oh my God, I was so embarrassed.
Patty was last, and
Mhm.
with your dad, and then Mom died around then after your
Yeah.
wedding.
She died in 1968. I was married in 67.
Okay.
She died in March, and we had been married in August.
Yeah. You were solo at home, and so then so Eastern Airlines came your way. And
Yes.
So tell a little bit about that.
So when I met Richard, I was based in Boston on Newberry Street,
Yeah.
and I lived in downtown Boston, but a lot of my flight attendant friends lived in a town called Marblehead. It's on the water,
Yeah, beautiful.
maybe 30 minutes away. So my Marblehead friend said, "Come on up for the day and the night, and we'll go to the beach." And there's a bar called Maddie's Sill-Loft Inn. It's the best bar in Marblehead, but you have to get in line at 6:30, otherwise you don't get in. So we went to the beach, we went home and got changed, and then we went to the bar, and we were standing in line. Opens the doors at 7. It was about 10 to 7, and I was with the flight attendants here, Babs and boys behind me, and Richie was standing right behind me. And he said, "Oh, where'd you get your tan?" and whatever. And we started talking, and he was from Little Silver, New Jersey.
Yeah.
And a girl I had gone to Berkeley with, she was from there. And as it turns out, Suzanne Tobias, he knew her. He went to high school with her and was friends with her. So that was the beginning. So we went into the bar in Maddie's, and all my friends were coming over, and they said, "Why are you talking to him? He looks like he's 10 years old." And he had about 5 really other cute friends that looked older than him. And I said, "Oh, we have all these things in common." And I had bought him a drink for $1.25. So the bar closes at 11, and his friend had a yacht out on the water. And he said, "All my friends have found other partners, and we're all going to go back to the yacht and have a party. Do you want to go?" I had my Opel GT then, as you remember. So he got into my Opel GT. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And we get down to the waterfront, which was close by. And he takes my hand and he said, they yell, "The dinghy's leaving." And it can only fit so many people at a time. And we were first one in the parking lot. They said, "The dinghy's leaving, hurry up." So he took my hand and we were running and we fell into a brook. I remember I had white pants and a plaid shirt, and all of a sudden was like down, and our friends saw us because they were all pulling in.
Right.
I think I wet my pants. I was like laughing so hard. So we get onto the dinghy, we get onto the boat, and I'm meeting all of his the guy who owns the boat and whatnot.
Right.
And it slept like, I don't know, it had like 3-bedroom boat.
Right.
And so we get in there, and the guy said, "You can't like have this party soaking wet." So he gave me a big long t-shirt. So I put that on, and then everybody started coming on the boat with the girls and whatever. And I think it was about 6 guys. They wanted to play poker, and none of the girls wanted to play. So I did. And Richie, I don't know where he is. He'll remember this forever. I beat everybody, and I won $200 in a t-shirt. I'm not sure if I had underwear on. In a t-shirt, I beat all of them. So we spent the night on the boat, everybody. Then the next day we met for brunch. I flew a trip. And then the next weekend I went to a wedding with one of his friends who was getting married in South Carolina. And we were together ever since.
Awesome.
Yeah. We got married in 77, 10 years after you.
Wow. So we have this is our last segment, a few remaining minutes, and I wanted to steer the conversation this way and see how it goes. A long time ago, I remember Beth, and some of you, I'm sure have heard the story, but Beth asking your dad, so, what was the secret to, your longevity, your happiness, your family? And so this is on the theme of being a family, but then also lessons that you've shared with your own children as you've raised your families. And so your dad's answer to the question was, well, I have to say, it's easy for me as a parent and for Mary as a parent to love your child. Like that's easy. And we did. And we loved them, we think, really well. But he said the real gift as a parent is when your children love each other and stay in relationship with each other. And that always stuck with Beth and I as we talked about that. And you've now, I mean, we're jumping ahead decades to look back, but I would say as your audience is going to be my cousins, my children, and their children, I look for your thoughts on that as having lived it well into your 70s and 80s, and what would you share with your children or about your children or raising your family that would connect in that way?
Christmas dinner.
Christmas dinner is a
Everybody
good one.
came for Christmas for all those years.
Yeah, that's
that
a good one,
great.
and I think it's happening in the next generation because I'm thinking about this message from your dad and from your mom, just that it was so, I don't know, meaningful to me. And like if you watch and hear his story and then you hear your stories.
When you think about it, when we were kids, every Sunday at 2:00, the whole family would be at the table, and we'd have like a formal dinner, and that would just became very closely knit family.
And then every Sunday we'd all be at Mass together. Daddy would always put us in the back row because if one little thing happened and we start laughing, the whole row is laughing. So we had to be all the way in the back. And there was one usher in particular that made us all laugh because he had a little quirk with it like that.
And you collect the money and you go. And when somebody like Nancy would look at me and go. We didn't sit in the last row of the church because we'd always start laughing over something.
Oh, but he always went to church, got us all to church, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we basically sat down as a family together every night for dinner.
Yeah, we did.
Which doesn't happen apparently very much anymore.
Yeah.
But we all sat down for dinner, and then Sundays it was 2:00. And Sunday night you're on your own. I'm not cooking again.
But we continued that. We always had dinner every night at 5:30 before they went to any games or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I cooked a full meal. And but I remember talking about Christmas, and I think kind of the start of all these shows that we've done for so many birthdays and whatever. When you guys were little, you used to go downstairs and you had to put on shows for Christmas dinner. Yours was the best. Remember when you gave us all the hats?
Oh, I had just come back from Hong Kong. I gave you all the robes. And had the kimonos with the Chinese something on the back. And then I gave Don and Bill, all the brother-in-laws, the Chinese hats.
Right.
And then we all turned into Chinese.
That was the funniest.
I wonder if you have a picture of that, because they were all different colors.
Yeah. I have a picture of part of it. We went downstairs because we had the picture of the in-laws taken. And the Outlaws were really upset, so they had the picture taken with Brian with his hat on backward and his glasses on the back of his head.
Yeah, and Susie's in that with all the guys.
Right. But that's when the kids all started doing those shows.
Yeah.
They had to go
you
down.
know what? My grandkids do that.
Isn't it great?
Yeah.
They do a show.
It is a tradition, and I think
Christmas they disappear upstairs, and the youngest one, Zara, is the host.
Wow.
So she is not camera shy, this kid. And so, Fiona and Lola help them write up a whole script and they put on a play for us.
It's so great.
And I saw a video of Zara singing in a school play. She was excellent.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. And really outgoing and into it.
Singing tomorrow, I think.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well,
so sweet.
LBI it continued because you do all the shows that Tom has videoed for so many years, and everybody's entertaining. But all of the cousins, it's not just one kid. We're really lucky. So it started a long time ago when you guys used to misbehave downstairs and come up and put a show on, and then you would play the guitar with everybody every night for Christmas. It was so cool.
All right, last question. Think of your funniest family story. Could be at any time in the something that made Nancy wet her pants. Was there any?
Oh
my God, that's a hard one.
Oh my gosh!
Pick one or two that stand out. Yeah.
I know a funny Nancy story because we were at our house and Jackie and Noreen and Claude were there, and Nancy went up. who were we at Noreen's house? Whose house were we at? And you went upstairs and you came down in one of her gowns.
Oh,
But Jackie,
and what if Noreen?
oh, it's Jackie and I stopped at Noreen's house and
Yeah.
you were there and you went up to her closet upstairs where she has about 500 gowns. And she came down in this gown and it was hysterical.
Well, a follow up to that
Just wanna
story
show it to them
was the night
later.
that we had a Gallery of Homes truck, and it was a moving truck.
Oh my.
And I got all the gowns out of the attic, and we put them on everybody that was going to the party. And we got in the back of the Gallery of Home trucks, and we ended up at your house with the truck, and we all went into the party in these horrible gowns. And
Gowns from the,
and we had a gown for you, and we made her put one of the gowns on. And then that night, they took the truck up to Ryan's house and took all the furniture out of it, put it in the truck. And the next morning, I get a call saying, "We need the truck. Somebody's here to pick it up." And we're going, "Oh, shit."
Full of furniture.
And we had to run and get the truck emptied and back to the office. And the furniture was still out all on
Yeah.
the lawn at the Ryans' house.
when Christmas, after Christmas, someone put an ad in the New Jersey Herald, which everybody read at that time, and this person was this ad said, advertising, "We'll pick up Christmas trees for $5 a tree, or we'll collect or pick." Okay, Christmas trees to be delivered, $5 a tree. Our phone,
Call
somebody put our number in there, and we
729-7711.
never figured it out.
Either Shad
It was Shad or Frank Clark.
Frank Clark. They
It's
figured
probably
I was like
Frank
a prank.
Clark.
So
Oh.
the phone was ringing off the hook, and one truck pulled up with a whole pile of trees in the back of the truck. Got our address somehow, showed up with a pile of trees that he wanted to sell to us.
Wow.
Dead Christmas trees.
Yeah, that
Chris,
was after
at the end of the
Christmas.
season.
You gotta get
Yeah.
rid of the trees at $5.
I have a wonderful memory when you all, I don't know if Jack was there, I forget. You all came to Hilton Head and we all went over to Defusky Island on the boat.
We did. That was it.
I have,
And you were there.
I have a golf club that's still there.
And we played golf and played tennis and we did everything. And then you took us all out for dinner and we were all loaded and we got back on the boat. And the guy was from Sparta, New Jersey, the captain, as it turns out. And we
So
danced
were
the whole way
only
back.
ones
Yeah,
on the
oh
boat
yeah.
coming back. There were no other tourists. It was just our family on the last
Yeah.
boat back. So the captain was speaking to us,
Right.
and he asked where we were from, and we said Sparta. He goes, "Crows." We had been to Crows.
Oh, I thought he was him.
Well, all right. So we're going to say that's a wrap for this session. This was outstanding.
You were outstanding.
You were a bunch
Good
of
job.
Oh,
Thank you.
and